come on in. Yeah, this is the shed in the garden. I've managed to fit 2 pianos in here. This is my old one that I can't tune anymore. Got it off Gumtree, but I can't let it go because it's so nice to play. Synth wall, which gets used sometimes, but also looks cool.
Fantastic.
Which is quite fun. Euler's disc for some percussion ideas. Some cupboards with loads of random instruments. I used a lot of these percussion instruments on a score I did, 9 bodies. Lots of different things to keep inspired, and the bike wheel.
Of course, who doesn't love a bike wheel? I've had a chance to listen to your soundtrack for the Soul Path, and I thought it was absolutely amazing. Really beautiful work. When you first watched the film, what was your initial reaction, and how did that shape your musical approach?
Yeah, this was an interesting one for me because I didn't watch the film for a long time until a long time into the process. My first experience of this story was listening to the audiobook, and it's read by Raina Wynn, who's the writer. I think the fact that she's reading it really gave me like a different insight into their story, and within the space of a week they kind of lose everything. So not only is Moth diagnosed with a rare form of like a degenerative disease, but within the same week they lose everything financially as well and lose their house, and so they're really kind of at rock bottom, and they decide they have this idea to let's just go on a walk and because nothing else to lose.
Like reconnect with nature or find solace.
Exactly,
basically.
and they wild camp along the southwest coast path, the Salt Path, and it actually ends up being kind of restorative for Moth's health, and he gets they still do a lot of walking today, and it's sort of either mentally or physically or both had a huge impact. So I went on these long walks myself and like listened to the audiobook walking around the park so suddenly there's these moments that really kind of poetry that really hit you. We let death in and life came with it, and then another.
Wow.
The sky met the land and we met the sky.
All right. Yeah. So you focus basically. You were inspired by the words of the author, and your walks in the nature, imagining, and then you composed before then watching any cut.
Yeah. So I composed a lot without any picture at all, which was a really great experience to sort of work out. Not be constrained by anything, and work out the palette that we were going to use. But also think about the bigger concepts of the film, and particularly that of the restorative healing power of nature. There's this recurring image of a peregrine. The couple along their way, along the walk, keep seeing this peregrine falcon, and she sort of thought about this as Mother Nature, or sort of the queen of nature, like overseeing them on their journey. And so a concept like that really got me thinking about how we could create within the world like the sound of nature to kind of welcome this couple in and entice them.
So it sounds like at first you didn't work closely with the director and editor, but that kind of gave you the freedom to not be constrained by the film itself, and then come up with a sound palette. And so how did that influence your creative choices in a way? Like when you first watched the cut and you presented your ideas to the director, was it like an instant match, or like was more like, oh, actually, could we try something different? Like how did it go?
She went into the process not wanting any music, not wanting any score. That impulse though came from not wanting to Hollywoodize or sort of. So this story is incredibly powerful, but the characters in it are very sort of unassuming. You could easily overwhelm the characters, I think, and make it seem too heroic. So I think that's where that impulse came from, not to overscore.
Right, yeah.
So, but I think it was great actually, because our first conversations were not to do with spotting the film, but were to do with these bigger concepts of, like, particularly of nature, and also the kind of love between Moth and Ray, and a kind of a quiet love and an enduring one. And music works on different levels, right? So we thought about, like, the more conceptual level, and sometimes we needed to also think about the nuts and bolts of within the scene, and how that was working. So it was great. We worked with the music editor, Michael Connell. He was able to come in and actually try temp in lots of places, so respot the film basically, and try it in places where we hadn't considered it.
Right.
And then it opened up Marianne and us to sort of think about, oh yeah, that's what music can do to that scene, and it doesn't overwhelm it.
Because one of the question I had in mind actually was like, because I thought your score was incredibly dynamic. It goes from this whispering tremolo harmonics, this beautiful texture, then often it swells and surges, like really powerful and emotional. How do you find the balance between emotion and storytelling in music without overpowering a scene?
Yeah, you're right. There is a contrast. I think the guiding principle for us with this was to, when there's characters on screen, not to overwhelm those, but because you've got this other character of nature in this film, and it's sort of, Marianne talked about when they were filming how it's the wind and the waves and the seagulls, and it's constant, and it's so kind of, my idea was that that's always there, and sometimes it would, it's always there in the background with these kind of different whispering sounds, but then sometimes it swells to the fore, and so it was useful in a way having, because there's lots of shots, wide sweeping shots of landscapes and things, so that was where music could sort of fill that void, or kind of really rise. They could have moments where it really came to the fore. But then when we were actually when we were with Ray and Moth, everything was much smaller. That's where the dynamism comes from in the sound.
I really appreciate it also. Was it like a bass flute or?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
because you mentioned Brave, and like,
yes.
That's good one.
Exactly. Yeah. So I worked with Carla Reese, who's an amazing, like, low flute specialist. Some amazing sounds. But one that I used a lot was this kind of whooshing sound, which breathed through the instrument. And I wanted to try and find sounds that would mimic nature, and so I guess that's the sound of the waves.
You mentioned before temp music, like how you didn't listen to it and maybe it wasn't working. And it's funny you mentioned that, because when I was listening, I was wondering, was there any temp music? And I thought your music was really, like, refreshing, original texture. I couldn't think of literally anything. Temp music, for people who don't know, is like temporary music that the editor puts in the cut, so it helps them edit the film and change the pacing sometimes. But more often than not, it's like a limitation for us composers, because then maybe the director kind of got used to the temp and fell in love with the temp, and we kind of narrow down our inspiration and creativity because we need to get a bit closer to that. But because you didn't listen to that, maybe that's why also it feels so original and interesting.
I mean, yeah, that's very kind of you to say. I mean, it's not only the director falls in love with the temp, but I fall in love with the temp. And it's so hard, isn't it, to get it out of your ears. And it was a useful way of showing Marianne, like, where music could work, where she hadn't thought about it before, and where it still doesn't work. Or what was really great was that no one on the team was particularly they weren't loving what they were hearing. So that gives you the freedom to explore different things, I guess.
Thank you so much. It was, it was really fascinating to hear about, your musical approach, and there's so much to learn. If you're happy, perhaps now we could move to the desk and we could maybe dig into some of the music more closely, and perhaps you could walk me through how you build some of the main themes, and maybe how to show us a bit of your process in the DAW.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. Let's do it.
Great, let's do it.
Yeah, so this is the first cue you hear in the film. the music kind of gradually creeps in this film, I think. For the first 20-25 minutes of the film, the format of the picture is actually smaller, therefore the music is very like more minimal and uncertain, really. And so this is from a scene where they started to set off on their path, on the salt path, and it kind of intercuts with a flashback of when Moth was diagnosed. So he's walking through the hospital, walking along the line, like a line on the hospital floor, and it sort of mirrors that journey. And so you want to have this kind of pulse that goes through the film, a kind of steady walking rhythm. What I landed on was something that's in 7/8. So it's sort of this like slightly off kilter rhythm of dum, 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 dum. So that last one just sort of like slightly throws you off a little bit. The harp starts it off, sort of just playing a little bit of it. And the mandolin strumming, getting that kind of uneven pulse. And actually, the very first part, this we recorded a string quartet who did this technique, circular bowing technique, which is it sort of like has a textural quality to it, but it also has a kind of they were playing in semiquavers. So again, those like subtle pulses to push these two characters like on their journey.
It sounds beautiful.
And then gradually it kicks in the low end. If I just solo that, so that is a piano pedal that's going on, and then also that's I think, is it contrabass or bass flute? That's Carla Reese, contrabass flute. I think I might have sampled it and
That's great.
Doing a sort of like, I think it's called a tongue slap or something through so yeah, all these elements like getting us almost into like a trance, like the harmony stays the same. We kind of, but
what kind of plugins or tools do you rely for this kind of sound?
So I used for the sampling things for this. I used Isotope Iris.
Oh, okay.
Which a lot of times now I actually just use the Logic sampler.
Yeah.
But the Iris one was great because you get you can really delve into like the spectrum, so you can pick out certain frequencies and things. Yeah, and then for kind of spatial reverbs like that, like black,
Black. Oh
black
yeah,
hole,
I love it.
which is great,
I
right?
always try to use it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially for soloists, it's so
Yeah.
good.
Yes, I think it's used a lot on the solo violin themes in
Yeah.
this. And then so the Sound Toys plugins I use a lot. Not
Same,
so much on. So this score I tried to keep as sort of natural as possible. But yeah, certainly on like other scores, it's all over there. I just find them really like creative plugins, really. But what's great, there's a lot of plugins as well on here that. So my Ollie Shelton, my mixer, we work actually within the same Logic project. But for other projects, I have done the more traditional approach of like handing it over, and I do like that. Is also nice because it separates it in your mind, isn't it? But,
yeah, definitely.
But for some things, it's useful, I find, to be able to then come back and tweak things. And
were there particular instruments or sounds that you felt were essential to the film's identity, and what led to those choices?
One of the first instruments that I experimented with was the mandolin. I bought it specifically for this film. I'm not a guitar player really, but I was thinking about English folk instruments and how to kind of incorporate them. And I wanted the whole score to have a sort of, an authenticity, but slightly kind of DIY approach of like slightly rough edges and folk based. So yeah, I bought a mandolin and I tuned. So they've got it's 8 strings, but usually they're just tuned like a violin. But I sort of thought, that's 8 strings we got to play with there. So I kind of did this weird tuning, I can show you in a minute, where it meant that you could resonate a chord with this, with the salt like pouring on the strings.
All right.
So I've walked quite a lot at on the Pembrokeshire coastal path, which is like a similar sort of landscape, I think. I'll probably be told off for saying that. But there, I just remember like there's lots of gorse growing everywhere, very rough, and so I got I got my mother-in-law to, because she was out there, to pick sort of cut some off for me. It's really spiky. It's really you have to be really careful with it. But I ended up like strumming the mandolin with the gorse. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
And sorry to any mandolin players there, but I kind of went and played it. I was thinking about things that would maybe scrape up against your legs when you're walking and the kind of struggle of it. And I thought it was quite a cool sound. Very kind of metallic. So that's in there as well. But then I took it a step further. I thought what it would be like to kind of pour salt onto the strings. I realised I didn't want to pour salt like down in the centre of the instrument. So like I came up with this kind of rudimentary setup, still trying to keep the strings vibrating. And I got some mics and just. And it reminded me a bit of, when you're camping and that kind of rain's falling on the tent, you get that kind of randomness, like a granular synth.
Yeah. Okay, now so we're gonna listen to the beautiful Peregrine Falcon theme, which is like one of the main motifs of the whole score.
Yeah, so this is the first time that the picture physically opens up on screen, and the characters starting to enjoy, well, as much as you can, but kind of really embrace nature. And we don't actually see the peregrine at this moment. It's the first time we wanted to introduce the theme now, so that when you do see it later, you've kind of it's like the peregrine's been there circling them, and then we kind of properly hear it later. So originally we just had it starting straight on the cut as it starts on their footsteps, and then it opens up to this glorious view. And so originally it started here. Ruby Colley playing that
Stunning.
solo violin
Really,
theme there.
so
Yeah,
beautiful.
she's such a free player, like untethered really, and wonderful playing. And that's the first moment really where the music soars and can kind of feel the characters, like the joy that they're feeling at that moment. If I just solo it, so it takes we kind of ramp up into it, kind of with these things that circle round. Lots of reverbs. It's very distant. So this, the theme starts there. So again, lots of rising fifths. You get that intimacy of the solo performer, but then also the scale, and there's also that bass flute wind sound, which is almost like instead of a cymbal swell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I could point it out because we have a library from Sonixinema called Brute Flute, which is a
Yes.
contrabass flute, and that's why. Wait a moment.
Yeah.
I felt like I heard it.
Well, I think
before.
I used it before we recorded. That's definitely I used it to demo.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Did you?
it's really
Okay,
good.
interesting. Yeah.
It's a wonderful library, and I think it's interesting how the sample library it opens up composers' minds. Like, oh, yeah, that's a cool. It really influences the direction of things.
Yeah, I have a small question because I'm interested because there's sometimes the violin part almost like an improvisational nature of it. Sometimes I mean, this mostly is her playing style, but like, was she like, I don't know? Did you meet in person here and then you say, okay, can you play this and maybe put also a bit of your, talent and experience into shaping the line with those maybe ornaments or perhaps like how was it like that somehow or?
Yeah, so I'd met Ruby through she actually in her kind of composing guise on like a PRS scheme, but I'd seen as part of that she played violin and in such an individual way, and so we had met in the past. For this, at first it was just remotely. She'd record in her kind of home studio, but yeah, I would definitely send. So I am a string, but I play viola, but so I could kind of mock up some ideas that I wanted to try, like that at the beginning, those sort of grace notes.
Yeah.
So I might have sent her, a few, like me trying to play that sort of thing.
Looking back at the final finished score, is there any moment you're particularly proud of? Also, why does that particular piece resonate with you?
This is like a really high point on the score for me, and it's a moment that really stuck with me from the book. It's sort of really symbolic of them fully being. There's this idea in the book of being salted, and sort of being like, like turning into nature and the wind and the waves, and so it's really symbolic of that for them, being enveloped in nature, but also it's where they really connect. They kind of as a couple, and their love kind of keeps going stronger. So it's sort of like a really seminal moment in the film, and one that we worked really hard on, and it brings together a few of the different themes. So but it was a challenge for me because I only got how many? It was a very short period of time because they dive under the water and it all happens, and so probably the main bit of the action underwater is probably about 30 seconds.
so
Yeah.
beautiful. It's so
Thank you.
poetic.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a wonderful moment. Great cinematography as well, and there's all these. It's the most. It's everything else is quite naturalistic. It's the only time really where there's sort of glittering fish and things going. But so it's sort of visually quite stylized as well. So, but yeah, a few of the different. There's this theme from elsewhere. This is sort of like an earlier iteration of the theme. So this is probably like the third time we've heard that da 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 da, that just rising scale. And for me, that was where are we? It's sort of that was that's Ray and Moth's sort of love theme, and so this is played now much more confidently at the beginning. And this is actually played by the quartet rather than Ruby. This
Right,
so
yeah.
it sort of differentiates it from that. But then here it transfers to Ruby's playing in a peregrine theme. So da, 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 that kind of peregrine theme, just a little snippet of it, like it's still overseeing them. And then the final thing I think with this cue is the texture, that salty mandolin thing. I started to kind of open it up, so it's all been very cut off before then, but then started to kind of open the filter on it, so it's like they're letting the salt into them, or like.
Well, thank you so much for having me and taking the time to show us your project and show us a bit into your creative process. I thought it was super interesting and really good learning experience for me as well. And I think the viewers will really especially like to hear the behind the scenes of the score, which doesn't happen very often.
No, thanks for giving me the opportunity to kind of delve back into it, and it's not often that you kind of look back like that at the early conversations and like, yeah, and how the themes kind of came about. So it's been really fun. Thank you.
Thank you, and I look forward to watching it in the cinemas soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.